He didn't fight to stay alive. He fought to be executed. And when the courts moved too slow, he turned into a killer, inside prison, just to force the state's hand. Robert Charles Gleason Jr. wasn't begging for forgiveness. He wasn't reading scriptures or claiming he found God. He told the system exactly what he wanted. If you don't kill me, I'll keep killing. He meant every word. In 2009, Gleason strangled 65-year-old cellmate Harvey Watson Jr. He strangled his cellmate after tricking him into allowing his hands to be tied by pretending it was part of an escape plot, using strips of bedsheets. He was mentally impaired and known for such antics as singing nonsensical tunes throughout the night and drinking his own urine. Gleason tired of him after about a week and tied him up, beat and strangled him on May 8, 2009, the 2-year anniversary of Jameson's murder that landed him in prison. He sat next to the corpse for 15 hours before guards even noticed. When asked why he did it, he said the man was annoying and should have never been put in a cell with him.
That he hung himself up on there, but he spit at me. So then I lit him up. I told him what was going to happen. I was waiting for one of the house guys to come by with the barrel. See, at lunchtime, they come by with the barrel for your tray. I was trying to con one of them and, hey, turn your back, I need to get something out of the barrel, but he wouldn't do it. I was going to stick him in a barrel, but rigor mortis kicked in. Couldn't do it. Do I have remorse for this? No. Am I on a suicide mission? No. My thing is, I'm not throwing this as a threat. It is what it is. If you guys give me life, sooner or later I have to go to population. I'm not Armstrong. I'll sign any kind of waiver you want beforehand, whatever's legal, saying I will not appeal this death penalty. Wash my hands with it, send me to Sussex. But if I get life, I'll end up in population sooner or later. Someone's going to get it. It ain't going to be an inmate. I don't give a rat's ass if a fucking nun went by. I ain't going to do it half-ass like Lamont Douglas or the other clowns did. Now, you guys take that off. Wallen's Ridge could have prevented a death. My fault. It's my fault. The only remorse I have, my kids got to deal with their father being a scumbag. But since I got messed with, the only way to prevent me from fucking taking someone else out is to get the death penalty. Do I deserve the death penalty? Damn right.
Still no execution. He shouted, "I wants to be executed." So in 2010, Gleason murdered again. This time, the victim was 26-year-old Aaron Cooper. 2 murders, both in prison, both while he was already serving life without parole. But Gleason had a rule. He told the press, "I only kill criminals like me, not innocent people. Never have. Never will." But does that make it justice? Or just a serial killer hiding behind his own code? Some wondered if Gleason was mentally stable. Others said this wasn't insanity. This was suicide by system. He could have killed himself. But he didn't. He said he wanted the state to do it, so his sons could see the consequences. "I wasn't there for them," he admitted, "but I can still teach them something. That actions have consequences. That this is what happens when you live like I did. No appeals. No delays." He fired his lawyers, rejected lethal injection, and chose the electric chair. Imagine, the electric chair is known to be painful and the most inhumane type of execution. Was this a man that was on a self-suicide mission and wanted the government to do it for him? On January 16, 2013, Gleason became the last man executed by electrocution in Virginia, and also Virginia scraped the death penalty from the system. I think this is a victory won for those against the death penalty. He went out barefoot, happy, singing, and proud into the death chamber, while witnesses watched him. Who works into a room happy when you know any minutes from now your existence will cease from the earth? He didn't want to die quietly. He wanted to make a statement, even if it meant burning for it. This is the story of Robert Gleason, who forced the state to give him the death penalty, and they should do it fast, because if not he will keep killing to force the state hands. Is this character from a movie? God's wonder. Welcome to our channel, and thank you for being here. If you enjoy stories like this, told raw and deep into human psychology, then you're in the right place. Before we proceed, let us know where you're watching from so we can tailor our content to better meet your needs. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Robert Charles Gleason Jr. committed 3 murders in Virginia, each one more chilling than the last. His first victim was Michael Kent Jameson, 54, shot execution style in Amherst County in 2007. Gleason gunned him down after believing Jameson's son had cooperated with federal agents in a methamphetamine ring. He later pleaded guilty, prompting police to use a taser during his explosive outburst in court. He was sentenced to life without parole. While serving that sentence, he moved to Wallens Ridge State Prison. There, in May 2009, he strangled a 63-year-old cellmate, Harvey Watson Jr., a mentally ill inmate serving a 100-year sentence for a past shooting spree. Gleason hog-tied, beat, and choked Watson with sheets, then waited 15 hours before guards found the body. He told the court, "I planned it to happen on the anniversary of the first murder. I had more inmates lined up if I didn't get the death penalty," making clear it was a warning he would kill again. Transferred to Red Onion State Prison, Gleason struck again on July 28, 2010. There, he befriended 26-year-old Aaron Cooper, sentenced to 30 years in prison for robbery. They passed notes in between cells. Cooper sent her mother stamps requesting she become his pen pal. In one of such letters he wrote, "I don't want you thinking I'm talking with a Satan worshipper or the boogeyman. He's just another guy locked up." On the recreation yard, he offered Cooper a religious necklace, a noose crafted from bedsheets. Cooper joked, "Don't strangle me with that." Just moments before Gleason looped it around his neck through the wire fence, strangling him until he collapsed. Guards discovered Cooper dead about 45 minutes later. Gleason laughed through the act, later mocking the staff's failed resuscitation efforts. When they discovered him, Gleason was calm. He didn't hide. He didn't lie. He confessed. He taunted. He said, "I told you I'd kill again." In court, Gleason explained, he engineered the setup to send a message to prosecutors. He did it as a favor to another inmate, planning to own someone outside prison afterward. He admitted it was premeditated, masked by trust. He'd studied Cooper, laughed with him, pulled him in with that fake necklace. He said how he pulled the cord in fits, lethal bursts, then pauses, until Cooper died. The betrayal cut deep. Cooper's mother, Kim Strickland, was devastated. Why didn't he just commit suicide? Why did it have to be my son? They should have kept him in his cell. They knew the threat. She's now suing the prison system for ignoring warnings, falsifying head counts, and letting Gleason set up the murder. Gleason didn't plead insanity or mental breakdown. He pleaded guilt in a capital murder case. He waived his appeals. He wanted that sentence. He told the court, "If you give me life, I'll go to population. Someone else, staff or inmate, will die. That's on you." That confession changed everything. 2 prison murders inside 3 years. One of them executed through a fence, using trust as a weapon. Gleason wasn't hiding behind fear or desperation. He was hunting for death. And he got it. He wasn't always a killer. Long before the murders, before the electric chair, before the press labeled him Virginia's most dangerous death row inmate, Robert Charles Gleason Jr. was just another tattooed kid trying to find his place. Born on April 10, 1970, in Lowell, Massachusetts, he didn't come from wealth or power. He came from struggle. And somewhere between childhood and the chaos of adulthood, something inside him broke. He had a gift. That's what people said. He knew how to draw. He could tattoo with precision, lines clean, colors deep. For a while, he worked as a tattoo artist in New York, living fast, working under pressure, bouncing from shop to shop. He didn't mind the noise. He loved the adrenaline. But the streets always called louder than the machines ever did. Gleason wasn't just an artist. He was also a father. He had 2 sons. And though he rarely showed emotion, those boys meant something to him. Something he didn't quite know how to protect. In one letter later, he admitted that his biggest failure was disappearing from their lives. He blamed prison. He blamed his own mistakes. He blamed the streets. But he never begged for sympathy. Not once. People asked if he was mentally ill. He didn't think so. He believed the system failed him, that he was a product of violence and betrayal, that the world didn't hand him darkness, he earned it. And now he wore it like armor. By his mid-30s, Gleason had left New York and moved down to Virginia. He got tangled in the meth trade, started making enemies, and stopped trusting anybody. He said too many people snitched. Too many played both sides. And that trust? He shot it dead one day. Just like that. He didn't see himself as crazy. He saw himself as focused, unforgiving, dangerous. The man who once etched ink into skin would soon be carving warnings into the state of Virginia, with blood. After Robert Gleason strangled Aaron Cooper in July 2010, there were no more warnings, so the court obliged him and gave him the death sentence. On September 6, 2011, just over a year after Cooper's murder, Gleason was sentenced to death. And from that moment, he was moved to Virginia's death row at Greensville Correctional Center. But unlike others who spend decades appealing, fighting, or finding God, Gleason embraced death like an old friend. He spent less than 18 months on death row. No petitions. No apologies. He fired every lawyer who tried to file appeals on his behalf. He said their attempts were a waste of time. He told the court plainly, "The only remorse I have is my sons have to live knowing their father was a scumbag." Then came the morning of January 16, 2013. Prison staff described it as surreal. Gleason wasn't shaking. He wasn't praying. He was smiling, grinning at the witnesses behind the glass like he was walking onto a stage. His tattooed arms, his shoulders relaxed. Witnesses said he walked into the death chamber like a man heading to a party, not the electric chair. They said it didn't feel real. It felt like something out of a Hollywood script. But it was real. Robert Gleason was ready. The chair was waiting. And he was smirking. The clock had started ticking. At exactly 9:08 p.m. on January 16, 2013, Robert Charles Gleason Jr. was pronounced dead by electrocution. But what unfolded in the 24 hours before that moment was as unnerving, deliberate, and unrepentant as the life he had lived. It began just after 9 p.m. on January 15th. In a small, heavily fortified cell inside Greensville Correctional Center's death row unit, Gleason sat alone. No cellmate. No yard time. No illusions. The man who had once demanded execution and murdered twice behind bars to get it now faced the full weight of his decision. He had voluntarily waived all appeals. No more legal tricks. No more interviews. This was it. His demeanor? Cold. Focused. Controlled. Prison officials later said Gleason displayed no anxiety. No fear. He had long accepted his fate and orchestrated every moment leading up to it. That night he ate. He made a request for a final meal, but told prison staff not to disclose what it was. To this day, no one outside that facility knows what Gleason chose. Not steak, not fried chicken. Maybe something ordinary. Maybe something symbolic. But the silence around that meal said more than the food ever could. Even in death, he controlled the narrative. He declined a spiritual advisor. No priest. No last rites. Robert Gleason didn't want saving. He wanted silence and satisfaction. From his cell, he made 5 final phone calls, all tightly monitored. Officials won't release who he spoke with, but it's believed at least one was to a family member, one to an old friend, and possibly one to his attorney. What was said remains private, but knowing Gleason, they weren't calls filled with apologies or tears. Throughout the day on January 16th, he remained calm with smiles on his face. He showered, shaved, dressed in the clean beige uniform assigned to the condemned. No outbursts. No screaming. No last-minute pleas. Just before sunset, the execution team conducted its final check. The electric chair, located in the death chamber a short walk from his cell, hadn't been used since 2010. Technicians tested the sponge, wires, voltage equipment. Virginia still allowed inmates to choose between lethal injection and the chair. Gleason picked the chair. He told the judge in 2011, "Lethal injection is for cowards. Give me old Sparky. It fits me." He wanted it public. He wanted it theatrical. He wanted witnesses to remember him. At 8:30 p.m., the warden came to his cell and asked the question required by protocol. "Do you have any final words you want to be recorded?" Gleason gave a nod. "I'll save it for the chair." They shackled his wrists and ankles. He walked steadily through the corridor, unflinching. No tears. No trembling. Just that eerie calm. Inside the execution chamber, the smell of disinfectant mixed with something colder, metal, electricity, maybe dread. 8 witnesses sat in silence behind a thick glass window. Members of the victims' families, prison staff, a few reporters. He was strapped into the chair at 8:55 p.m., ankles, wrists, chest, and head. A black mask was pulled over his face, with only his nose protruding. It looked medieval. It was. The final sponge was placed under the skullcap, a crucial detail to ensure the voltage would kill fast, not torture slowly. Gleason gave a sarcastic nod. Then he leaned forward slightly and gave his final words. "Well, I hope Percy ain't going to forget to wet the sponge. Put me on the highway to Jackson and call my Irish buddies. Pog emo thoin. God bless." The translation? Kiss my ass. Spoken in Irish Gaelic. It was a calculated insult. Defiant. Gleason had waited for this moment, not to atone, but to provoke one last time. At 9:06 p.m., the execution order was read. At 9:07 p.m., the switch was flipped. A crackling surge tore through his body. His fists clenched violently. Smoke rose from beneath the mask. His body tensed and convulsed. Then silence. 9:08 p.m., he was declared dead. Robert Charles Gleason Jr. was the first person executed in the United States in 2013. He was the last person executed in Virginia by electric chair. The death penalty was scrapped 2021. For some, his death marked the end of a nightmare. For others, it raised chilling questions. What happens when a man doesn't fear prison or death? What happens when the system locks away a killer, but he keeps killing anyway? The room had cleared. The mask was lifted. The body wheeled out. Robert Gleason's execution was done. But what came after was not peace. It was a war of words. Within hours, the press releases dropped. Civil rights groups condemned the state. Legal observers dissected the last-minute motions. Headlines debated a brutal truth. Had Virginia honored justice, or had it become a tool in a killer's suicide plot? Gleason's case wasn't just another execution. It was a legal and ethical grenade. His own lawyers, fired months earlier, had tried to stop it anyway. They argued he was mentally unfit, that he was obsessed with death, that the state was doing exactly what he wanted. They called it state-assisted suicide. But the courts disagreed. Virginia didn't blink. In their eyes, Robert Gleason wasn't a helpless man. He was a hunter. He'd killed behind bars, not once but twice. And not in rage, but with purpose. He'd used murder as a bargaining chip, daring the system to end him. The state took the dare. To prosecutors, this wasn't about whether Gleason wanted to die. It was about whether they could afford to let him live. If they didn't execute him, who would he kill next? The message from the Department of Corrections was clear. We didn't give him what he wanted. We gave the victims what they deserved. But in the years that followed, Gleason's case wouldn't go quietly. His name kept surfacing. In courtrooms, in political debates, in academic papers dissecting the ethics of punishment. His was the case opponents of the death penalty pointed to when they said, "This is why it must end." And in Virginia, it finally did. On March 24, 2021, Governor Ralph Northam signed a bill abolishing capital punishment, making Virginia the first southern state to do so. At the signing ceremony, he said, "We've come too far to keep killing people as a form of justice." That law closed the door. Robert Gleason became the last man executed in Virginia. And in doing so, he became the final chapter of a violent era. But not everyone celebrated. Some saw the irony. A man who murdered to force his own death got exactly what he asked for, and took the entire death penalty with him. Gleason hadn't just manipulated the prison system. He'd hijacked the state's moral compass. And some argued he won. He wanted the chair. He got it. He wanted the spotlight. He kept it. He wanted control. And from his first murder to his final words, he never let go of it. The debate remains. Was executing Robert Gleason justice, or surrender? Either way, Virginia pulled the plug, for good.